Hi, this is Jim Hamilton with Core Resonance. I want to welcome you to the latest iteration of my videos and newsletters. This latest newsletter is called November 1, the premise 7, The World of Matt Kahn. Premise 7 is number 7 in a series of 12 premises of core resonance. Core resonance colonies and taproot by core resonance is my primary attention and focus these days, and you can learn about that on the website at coreresonance.com. Premise 7, The World of Matt Kahn. I want to introduce Matt Kahn to people who don't know who he is. Matt Kahn is a very interesting figure in today's advancing consciousness circles. He came on the scene for me 4 or 5 months ago, and I will tell you that, in my opinion, I haven't seen anybody as significant since Abraham came on the scene of Abraham Hicks about 20 years ago. Abraham Hicks, of course, delivered an understanding of law of attraction. It has been a major component of a lot of advancement for a lot of people, and Matt Kahn's work takes that to a whole nother level. Matt Kahn seems to be plugged into the cosmos directly and completely. He doesn't work from any kind of notes. He doesn't work from any kind of preparation. It doesn't matter what you ask him. He is in present time, and his capacity to express himself is, I won't say beyond belief, but it is certainly at the edge of our capacities. And he is a wonderful mechanism and throughput mechanism for us to have and come to better understandings about our very nature. I include Matt Kahn as one of the premises because he has a view and a perspective that is so large that he simply enhances and increases our awareness just by listening to him. And I want that as a tool as part of the core resonance colonies and the work that I'm doing. So let me explain about Matt Kahn just a little bit. I've already said that he is completely plugged in. He talks about being a young person and being extremely sensitive, and in this sensitivity and continuing to refine it, and at the same time knock down his blockages and baggage and all the different misunderstandings that he carried. He has a completely clear path, a completely clear means by which innate intelligence expresses through him. And what I find so wonderful is that his descriptives and his ideas and his expressions, while they are very similar to core resonance, they actually go farther. And so I have the highest regard for this man. One of the things that I find interesting is that the way I describe what he describes is I describe it from the perspective of the mind, of the brain, of the nervous system, and that our natural state is an intact connection with the cosmos. What I have said and been saying for quite some time is that the nervous system is a receiver. It is our natural state to be a throughput mechanism for innate intelligence to express through us. And in the sophistication of our nervous system, we manage to get into a state of separation. We got into resistance by some means. We created separation. And in this separation, moving out of our natural state of guidance, the brain, the single biggest part of the nervous system, which, by the way, 4 of your 5 senses plug straight into, the brain had to convert over from being part of a receiving system, had to convert over and become a processor. And in becoming a processor, got on overload in a hurry. Joe Dispenza in the movie What the Bleep stated that the brain only consciously processes approximately 2,000 bits of information a second. There's 400 billion bits of information out there, ever changing, and if the brain is consciously processing at a rate of 2,000 bits a second, I can assure you the brain was never designed to be a processor. As the brain got into overload, and this is my opinion, it set up the mind as a repository of automated, habitual, and reactionary responses to everything. And why was this? Because the brain needed a guard dog to stop the incoming information. Because don't forget, our natural state is as a receiver. And so the brain had to stop the incoming information because it couldn't handle it. And that is the source of the creation of the mind by the brain on overload. And what we're after is re-enabling this state. What we have is Matt Kahn, by another means, by years and years and years and years of practice. And he started out as a very young person, a very high quality, sensitive, if you will. And as he worked his way through life, he came to understand his position in life, his nature, and the world around him, and differentiated between the two, became clear. And now he delivers a vast insight into the world that all of us want to know more about. One of the things about Matt does not use the term resistance. To me, it's a very natural term to explain being out of our natural state of connection. He does not use the term mind either. He will use all kinds of different ways of explaining and expressing his capacity to observe about the nature of wholeness. And I find it easier, or I should say, our descriptives are hand in hand, and I will say he has a more sophisticated view. He is farther along the path, and his capacity to describe what he describes has more depth. So Matt Kahn brings a great deal of depth to the spiritual community. His capacity to describe connection is vast. And one of the things he does is he teaches us how to use the mind to get out of the mind. And I have always considered this to be, I won't say not possible, but traditionally the mind being dysfunctional from the get-go is not a very good tool for advancing our own consciousness. Anybody wants to understand that idea better, you can be in touch with me and I'll explain it. But again, if the mind is a product of the brain on overload, the mind is not a tool created by our cosmic connection. It's created as a product of the lack of our connection. And so using it as a tool has serious limitations. But what's been discovered is that the brain operates in patterns and habits. And frankly, everything is patterns and habits. If you're familiar with sacred geometry, everything is patterns and habits. And the brain learns in patterns and habits, and so does the mind. And what that means is that with the brain on overload, the mind has a limited capacity, certainly for processing. And what it does, it spits out automated responses. And automated responses come from settling into patterns and habits. The first time you go into a restaurant, you're going to find that the restaurant is too dark, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that. And you're going to find that you get seated. You're going to find lots of things to discover. And it isn't until you've gone in the restaurant 2 or 3 times that you actually start to get familiar with the menu. It isn't until that you've been in the restaurant 2 or 3 or 4 times that you start to discover where you really like to sit, who the waiter or waitress you prefer is, or who the owner or the host is. And you settle into patterns and habits the more times you go into the restaurant. Same thing with moving to a new city. Initially, you are manually processing everything. And as you discover where the dry cleaners is, or the 24-hour teller, or the gas station you like, or the grocery store you like, you settle into patterns. And as you settle into patterns, you relax. And you have what you might call in computer terminology, you have resources available. When you're manually processing everything, when everything is fresh, you're in overload. And as you settle into patterns and habits, you relax. Well, one of the things Matt's done, and it's the same thing with core resonance, is we've come to see that patterns and habits can be harnessed. In other words, we can create our patterns and habits intentionally if we want. And as we become more conscious, we learn that patterns and habits is the mechanism up and out, or certainly it's one of them. And it's one of the very few ways the mind can be used to be of help. An example would be, and it's Matt's example, what if we trained our mind to react to something and say, all is well? Or even better than that, what if we reacted to something and came to understand that all is well? In other words, speaking it is one thing and understanding it is another. But do you see how the mind could become a host for that transition. Another thing that Matt teaches is that when you have a problem, something that's hard to deal with, you put it in your etheric heart and you love it. And that becomes the mechanism of your patterns and habits. You have a problem, you put it in your heart and you love it. And you hold it there until you can love it. So these are patterns and habits that Matt teaches. They're very fundamental. All of his work is fundamental. It very much aligns with core resonance. I will wholeheartedly agree that Matt Kahn has a much larger view. He is an intact connection. He has no resistance. He is in complete acceptance of his connection with the cosmos. As I like to point out, unconditional love is first and foremost to your connection. In other words, unconditional love isn't about loving other people. That comes naturally. But coming to have no resistance to your maker, having no resistance to innate intelligence flow through you unimpeded. In other words, giving up all control, all sense of survival, all sense of protection, and letting innate intelligence flow through you completely is our function. And to enable our function, unconditional love is expressed from us or through us to the cosmos. We become a completely open mechanism for innate intelligence to express through, and then in that we express into the world without the mind. The premise number 7, the world of Matt Kahn, is important. I have the highest regard for his work. I've got a couple audio clips associated with his work. I want you to take a look at premise 7, the world of Matt Kahn, and I would appreciate if you take a look at the rest of core resonance. I will wish you well. Namaste.